Welcome to What the Biz, where we talk about building successful businesses, balancing life, and all the WTB in between. With your hosts, me, Richard Pyatt.
I'm Brigitte Vector.
And I'm Dan Prochko.
Greetings, folks.
What's going on?
Oh, another week in the salt mines. How about you?
The salt mines.
Whoa, Richard, is it
I'm
really
deep in
that
the
bad?
trenches,
Salt mines?
guys.
This is expression, just working away.
Gotcha.
Actually, the first part of the week, I had no outside appointments. And so it was actually nice to just, be home, working on my schedule, doing what needed to be done, and moving along.
Oh, yeah.
And then yesterday was the opposite. I had one thing after another and went to a new for me kind of event where entrepreneurs support each other. I've been getting involved in a couple of those, which are really nice to have that kind of support, kind of like this, right? Opportunities to talk with one another.
I kind of want to crack like an AA joke or something like that about entrepreneurs helping each other. I mean, but seriously, is that who's that through?
This one was one called 1 Million Cups. I'm sure folks listening to this are aware of it. Some of you anyway, because it's a national group, but they have been working hard to establish local chapters, I suppose you'd call them. And folks go and make their pitch in front of a group of entrepreneurs and then have that pitch evaluated, and not necessarily, you said I'm a lot, or, stuff like that, although that could be part of it. It also is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to make their pitch and then hear what some of the questions they get back are and help them hone their pitch, if that makes sense. So it was the first time I'd ever gone to one, and I listened to a couple of folks present. One person was polished in their presentation. He's been at it for a while. The other person just started their business a month ago, and you could see a bit of the difference. There was some polishing that needed to happen, but I think she got some really good feedback because people were asking her questions that had her, hopping.
The individual's polished. Are we talking about Rob Peterson? He was there regarding Dover Birch?
Yeah, Rob did his, and Rob's been in business a little while, and he's just been not necessarily in his own business, but he's been in business in one way or another for a long time. So he's pretty polished with his presentation.
He's got his new the new agency, Dover Birch, and I know he's working closely with entrepreneurs as well. So that's awesome to see that he's out there getting that out. But 1 Million Cups, been invited quite a few times. Great little event. Great at least the local ones. I'm sure there's some that are larger than others, but at least the one in our area, actually all three of us are in the same area. The one here, it's a smaller event, I have a feeling, but a lot of high quality individuals go. So
yes. I would agree with that. And we'll link it in the show notes so you can click to 1 Million Cups, and then you can see all the areas where chapters have been established, and they're happy to help establish chapters in new places. So that's nice. Very supportive, and it was nice. I liked it.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I did that. Closed a client this week as well.
Sweet.
Congrats.
Sweet. Oh, that's awesome.
Made
Congrats.
a few more pitches. So just that's all I'm about. So I haven't been in business terribly long. It's been 1 year right now when we're recording this, 1 year. So I guess it is a long time, right?
First, congrats on a year already. I mean, most don't make it beyond a year. So you're already ahead of the game right there. So that's awesome. So
we made money. That's good. Now, depending on how you look at it, I mean, there's very little overhead in what I'm doing. So, you make money. But of course, I'm paying myself.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. The profit question as an owner, which I'm sure we're going to explore somewhere down the line.
Right.
Definitely. Especially with a bookkeeper with us, with Brigitte. Totally. That's something we're definitely going to be exploring.
I'm going to have to put Brigitte to work at some point.
All right, you heard it.
I don't.
You heard it. So I've been working a lot on client retention recently. Got some contracts that are coming up, and some clients. I guess we kind of commiserate about this all the time. Some clients, they lose alignment as to what the point of a project is, et cetera, over time. It never fails. You got to, come in there and just re-explain, what the point is and how it works. And it's not a silver bullet. Things take time, et cetera. But, pointing out what those positive milestones are that you're seeing along the way. And so I've been doing a lot of that recently. Kind of got my mind going around some automating in some of it, honestly, whether it be reports or other email touch points, even scheduling meetings. So a lot of that's on my mind, what we're working on internally. So that's what I got. That's where I've been.
I was just going to ask if it's something that if you work on retention often, or if it's just kind of a once a year, like how do you?
I'll be honest, it's like a once a year right now. It's unfortunately lacking, for how long we've been in business, that we haven't put more attention here. It's definitely something we are going to put a formal process to. We've already started documenting what we want a renewal process to look like and what it looks like throughout the year to help with retention. And so based on that, we'll start implementing and seeing how feasible some of it is. But
yeah, that sounds like a whole subject we could talk about down the road.
Would love
the notion, what is a renewal process? Let me just tell you, I hadn't even thought about that. I've been so busy trying to form new relationships, and I'm sure folks can relate to this. Form a new relationship with a client, work on that relationship, and then renewal. Yeah, that's down there somewhere. I haven't.
Yeah, they come up. So they come up at least once a year. Yeah,
right. Congratulations to you. You have clients that have been there, and now you have to retain them.
Retention? What is this?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the beauty of business ownership, right? Like always trying to streamline processes.
Streamline everything. Exactly. Yeah.
I actually tried something new this week. I typically have client meetings every week. And with it being month end, I took May and I said the whole first week, nothing. I'm just not doing anything. And it has been glorious.
So I think I messed that up though, because you held the meeting with me. So I was the only client meeting all week.
Oh, I like getting it out of the way though. Like it's because yours is done. Everybody else, awesome. I'm like, if I'm waiting on paperwork or whatever it may be, right? Like their banks sometimes don't even get statements out right away in the month. So I took this week to just button up month end, and I think it's going to be a system that stays.
Solid.
I liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's similar to what I was talking about earlier in the week, not having scheduled on a couple of days anything that required me to go out, but also nothing terribly long virtually either that helps you say, okay, I'm reserving this time for month end. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
So now next month, if I can get really good at like that whole trick of calendar blocking, maybe I'll eventually make efficient use of every second of my day.
Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting because I've thought about that too. So my business is helping folks develop content. And so that means you have to have meetings with them, right? So I have had the thought, well, I'm going to block out Mondays for this. And then what's I expect fully to happen is somebody will say, well, I can't meet on any day but Monday. And so then you've got you've just got to break your rule. But
well, what's that quote? Best laid plans.
Yes.
Best laid plans of mice and men. Yeah.
You can try and systemize this calendar, but in your case, you have to do the month end steps, right? So you've got to make the time.
Absolutely. I mean, they want it by a certain date and should have it by a certain date, which is what we do. So we want to have those client meetings out, which means I have to have time to focus.
Yeah. So our intent today was to talk about why we are in business.
I've heard bits and pieces of both your stories, so I'm super interested in getting in. But just a reminder, like you're not used to our voices yet. I'm Dan Prochko. I own and founded a marketing agency, now called My Pocket Marketing. Used to be called something else. It's irrelevant. Not going to share it, at least not right now. That could be a question somebody can follow up on. But back in 2008, when we started, we pretty much just focused on websites. That's about the time where I'm going to use a lot. This is going to be a horrible crutch word here, but the web was changing. Around 2008. It was like Web 1 to Web 2.0. I mean, Web 2.0 is something everybody knows about. It's been around a while. I know nowadays everybody talks Web 3.0 if you're following, but it was around that time we were switching from 1.0 to 2.0. content management systems like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, etc. They were all starting to build and grow. And so I jumped in and started to learn WordPress and Joomla at the same time. Should have only learned one of them because one of them's pretty much defunct at this point. But started doing websites for clients, mostly small businesses, because they didn't have budgets. And at that time, websites were really expensive to make. There was a lot of custom coding, even in WordPress. Like today, you pretty much like find a theme, plug and play, everything like works. For the most part, there's still, tweaking and other things to make them work well. But, there was no need for them to be that expensive is what I thought. And so we jumped in and started offering quality work, lower cost, which any management consultant is going to tell you, why did you do that? But we did. And as we were building, we'd always talk with clients like, hey, how is this going to work with your marketing? As an agency nowadays and strategy, it's not where we started, but we always had that in mind because I was always a marketer or a marketing director wherever I worked. And, we'd always get blank stares, like it's the field of dreams. What do you mean? How are we going to use it? If we build it, don't people just show up? It's just like, yeah, you put a storefront out there. Do people just walk in? Only because they saw the sign that you existed, AKA, they got to see your website, and just putting it up doesn't mean people see it. So it was this, yeah, right. Yeah. Oh my God, wait, I have to promote stuff. So we pretty quickly, after about a year, maybe even less than that, pivoted into some marketing strategy of like, okay, you want a website, why? Okay, how are you going to accomplish that? And then walk through all those steps with the client and then help them actually execute all that. The best part is we were no longer working for pennies, actually, which was great, because once you get in that strategy realm, it's just like, oh, there's all this other stuff and you're adding so much more value. But that's where we started. 2008 websites, made that pivot into strategy. Websites still a big deal today, but I mean, we'll help with everything from overarching brand strategy. We'll even work on how does that partner with sales. You want to do your email marketing, ads, XYZ. We're a full service agency. And since then, we've had clients, across the entire United States, Canada, and even clients across in Europe. So we're an international agency now after 14 years. So
very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But it all started just wanting to help businesses, help others succeed. That's really the thing. If, yeah.
That's interesting. Why. And you probably touched on 17 things that we'll zero in on as we go along. But one of the things that stood out to me that you said had to do with how you pivoted. You recognized the opportunity to expand your focus and then undertook that plan. And I think business owners all end up doing that at some point, right? Do we keep the current Coke, or do we get the new Coke, or do we do both? Remember that? Doesn't always work, right?
Crystal clear Pepsi or regular Pepsi, or what are we going to do? Yeah. Coke too. Yeah. It's crazy. You think you're doing what the client wants, and you really quickly understand what they actually need. And then there's the hard work of actually bridging that gap between what they think they want versus what they need. And actually, I think there's books about that called Bridging the Gap, but other things. But Oh, definitely something we'll definitely explore in the future. But that's kind of the story. That is the story of why we started the business. We wanted to help companies have better online presence, and that turned into just better businesses overall now. It's amazing what we talk about with clients, everything from customer service to even employee retention. I mean, we've done marketing campaigns to help recruit new team members. And then once they're on board, do, onboarding drips that make them feel part of the team, and other elements, those things that we touch upon within the brand that help keep that brand consistent throughout, throughout all aspects of the business. So we've even helped beyond just the marketing and new clients or sales. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah, cool. So Brigitte, would you like to go next?
Sure. Oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. So growing up, I knew I would end in like a financial world of some sort. Numbers have always been just kind of my thing. After graduation from college, I just kind of hopped right into grant accounting. I was there for, and actually still am there. I was there for over 12 years before I hopped into the business. And, I met a lot of small business owners and just kind of realized the potential that they weren't reaching just because they didn't have the support on the financial side, which was truly amazing to me.
Right.
And just kind of as I was going, I realized it's because they couldn't afford some of the options out there. It got really expensive to get the financial support. So, I spent that time in grant accounting. I had the flexibility to just kind of work from anywhere at any time. I also knew that I never wanted to go back to a 9-to-5. So when I realized, I could kind of combine the things with my passion and things that fueled my passion, which is numbers and helping people, and just saw the need of the small business owners. That's kind of how the company was born. So I actually took the first step, took that leap in March of 2020 with getting, the business registered and the EIN, and then, oh, hey, let's have a pandemic. You started a business. Let's have a pandemic.
Yeah, let's shut things down. Right.
Nothing will cause a heart attack faster.
Oh my gosh. And I guess I'm blessed because I hadn't stepped away from my full-time role when I kind of, started dipping the toes in the water of business ownership. So the pandemic didn't, it could have went really bad if I would have been already taken the full leap. So
yeah, I know, Brigitte, you and I, we've had quite a few conversations about small business bookkeeping, et cetera. But when you were back thinking about starting, you said something like that didn't have the books where they should have been because costs were too high. Like why are they so high? Like what's going on what's going on there?
Well, unfortunately, the first place that business owners turn to are your big accounting firms or CPA firms. And you're going to be paying those dollars that they charge.
Right.
So unfortunately, that's kind of it. It depends on the firm. Some don't even love doing bookkeeping. So I partly wonder if they charge that much because it isn't a passion of theirs. They would rather, have the clean books to do tax returns. Some love it and they do, that is kind of not, they don't charge as much, but that was one of the areas that I saw. And on top of that, there's unfortunately a lot of people that claim to be good bookkeepers out there and businesses get burned. So then they don't trust hiring somebody else to do that for them.
Oh boy.
And the other misconception that costs them a lot of money is they think they need somebody sitting in a seat in their office to do their bookkeeping. They don't need an employee like that.
Yeah.
That is actually one of my missions, is to really change that thinking, because it is costing businesses so much money and they would get so much better output, not having somebody in seat.
That's really interesting because, full disclosure, Bridget's my bookkeeper. Oh my God, my lifesaver. Okay. So we don't have anybody obviously internally that we hire for it or anything in that realm. Not that we're super complex either, but it was really interesting hearing what you said is like, difficult to find the places that even offer the service. And I guess that's kind of similar to why we jumped in. Everywhere that, as we were talking with small businesses, the other services they were looking at were charging tens, 20, well, not tens, meaning 20, 30, $40,000 for websites at the time. And it's just like, small businesses that are, a $1 million a year or less, that's a huge chunk of a marketing budget. Or, when it comes to bookkeeping, whatever that was, it's probably a huge chunk of operating budget, et cetera. That is just ridiculous. So really, really interesting. Surprising how many don't have their books in a line, because we've talked a lot about this, because I, on the marketing side, take a lot from a P&L or from their budget, because if they don't have it, how do we help grow, et cetera, down that line? It's amazing. Sure. It's illuminating when they start to see those numbers put into place is really where I wanted to go with that, is when they can see like, oh man, here's what it costs to get a new client. Now I understand why I'm spending so much per month or year, because these are the costs and the different elements that add together to make that, help them drive a better business. So I tip my hat that you wrangle all that together.
The amount of story, like business story, that comes out of a financial report is amazing. Like, it tells a lot about a business. And unfortunately, most small business owners, as you know, and I know, and Richard knows, you don't have a lot of capital necessarily up front. And so you try to manage certain things and wear all of the hats yourself. And I think too often business owners try to keep that financial accounting hat on because they don't think they can afford somebody. And when it isn't a passion of theirs to do, I would say most business owners that I talk to say, that's the first thing I push off, and I push it off month after month after month. Mm-hmm. And they aren't getting the value of those reports that would actually help them grow faster. Really, it pays for itself overall. So, yeah.
It's interesting what you were talking about, related to having someone in their office doing their books. I can recall that I served on a nonprofit board where we had an accounting firm, of course. They did our audit every year, and they also sent the bookkeeper to the office because I think there was, at that time, this was years ago now, that time there was still that sense that if I have someone I can trust sitting in my office to whom I can speak directly, look in their eye, I derive some kind of reassurance out of that, right? But would you say now that with the way business has changed, we're operating virtually more, that the mind maybe is more open now than it's ever been to what you're talking about, that you don't have to have somebody there? Is that true?
Absolutely. I mean, we see it with employees in general, right? Like, businesses that probably would have never entertained any sort of remote option for their employees were almost forced into that. And it opened their eyes that, oh, this could work. It is a possibility. So I would say when I started my business and the pandemic hit, I'm going, oh, this isn't great. But I think it actually helped because it sells that point that they don't need somebody in-house. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, also with the market right now and, people trying to find employees, they also aren't getting all that many applications for people to be sitting in a seat. So, yeah.
Well, if I've heard something consistent from both of you answering the question, why are we in business? Both of you saw a need that you could help fulfill, right?
Yep.
Fair to say?
I would say so. Yeah. And I think most businesses kind of start on that same foot. You have a need of some sort that's been identified, mixed with a passion, and normally a passion to help in some regard. Mm-hmm. Business is born.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. I guess it's my turn, right? Why are we in business? So I did see an opportunity combined with a passion as well. And I'll tell that story. My name is Richard, by the way. My background has been in radio broadcasting, but let me tell you something about radio. I loved it so much that when I was young, like, 10 or younger, I knew this was something I wanted to do. And I'm going to date myself by saying this, but
back when the dinosaurs roamed there. No,
probably.
Totally just kidding. I know you're the oldest of the three.
I was just going to say, I'm the oldest of these three. Can you tell? Okay. So when I was a kid, Phil Donahue was on the television. Oh yeah. Do you guys even know who Phil Donahue is?
Oh yeah.
He's still kicking at the time of this recording, and he's close to 90.
I'll choose not to answer that question.
Choose not to answer. So Phil Donahue is the guy who paved the way for Oprah, Maury Povich, Jerry Springer. I mean, except Donahue was an interviewer, a very versatile interviewer guy. So he could do an interview about, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a serious subject, abortion, or he could interview the stars of the latest blockbuster movie. And he had a studio audience, and he'd run around with a microphone, and they would ask questions too. And he would formulate these thoughtful questions. They were very unbiased, I thought. They were well thought, at least. And I thought, I want to be like that guy. I want to interview like that guy. So Phil Donahue, thank you. That made me want to be in broadcasting. However, broadcasting is a lot of things that a normal 9 to 5 is not. It's odd hours. It's a lot of demands. It's not much pay, particularly if you're like me and you say, I don't particularly care to circulate the country going from job to job. Don't know if any folks listening or you two, I'm sure you have, at least Dan, seen the movie Private Parts that tells Howard Stern's story in his early career. That's pretty accurate. You go from city to city and get fired or quit and get fed up, whatever it is, move on. So I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to set roots and just do radio because I loved it. So I did that. However, all of those things I mentioned in a medium market situation like I was in come with it. You get more jobs piled on you. You when you get hired, they talk about your salary and never talk about it again. Raises, what are those? Bonuses, don't know what that means. So you have all those components. And for me, I know a lot of great people who work in radio still, and none of that bothers them because they're doing what they love. And I envy that. Pyatt here had a need for more than that. And so I've left radio several times in search of this perfect mix of that passion and getting what I deserve. And I don't mind telling you, I'm the oldest of these three. I'm 50 years old, and I think I found it. But it took this long to figure that out. So that's what happened to me. I had been in radio, been out of it, been in radio, been out of it. So I left the industry by this time, understanding that I felt my skills could be applied in other industries, which they were. Another 3 years goes by. I'm deep into a new career, which was paying quite well, but wasn't firing the passion. Pandemic comes. So here we are talking about that again. Same time you're starting, Brigitte. March 2020, I get off an airplane. March 16, 2020. Know that because it's my mother's birthday. And I'm walking through the Detroit airport that is almost desolate because, as you recall, March 2020 was when things were just starting to shut down. People were getting serious.
Black and white.
Yes.
Black and white.
Finally, there was a notion that we had something serious we had to respond to. And so I was traveling every 4 to 6 weeks on some business trip. And there were a lot of things to juggle. And when the pandemic came and everything stopped and we suddenly had more time, I thought, what am I doing? Just like everybody else, a lot of people said, I'm having a pandemic-induced epiphany. And I did that. So I started doing a podcast for fun. Some friends of mine kept saying, you should do a podcast. I got a job. I don't know. That sounds like work. But I found out it wasn't hard. And here's Zoom. Virtual recording is easy to do. It sounds all right. We can do this. So then I did. And then the wheels start turning. How do I make a business out of this? So that was a long story. Probably going to have to edit that. But the point is, why are we in business? I'm in business because I think I finally found the combination of the passion of radio with the opportunity to provide me with what I deserve. And so I did it. And so Live My Communications was born. And the notion behind that is we help businesses, organizations, even individuals share their story through purposeful podcast content.
Well, I am hoping that you see all the success that you do deserve, because
thank you.
We haven't said it yet, but Richard and I used to work together in radio. That's how we met, actually, more than 10 years ago. And everything he said is true about radio. If you want to make it, you got to move to a whole other market. You cannot plant roots or stick around wherever you're at. And as soon as somebody's let go, and you're around, you tend to gain new responsibilities without pay. So I remember us sharing lots of stories around there, but I love what you're working on right now. And I know there's so many businesses that could use that, tell their story better. So really excited to see the work that's going to come out.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. And we're going to talk more about this in the coming episodes. How did we know, right? That it was time, that we should do it, that it was right. But one of the things I'll say about that, just ahead of all of those discussions, is I realized that as I shared the idea, people would respond with the eyebrows would go up and the eyes would get wider. And they'd say, oh. So that's how you kind of get a notion for, maybe I got something here.
Isn't that like exciting? Like when you share what you're doing, and like eyes is just like, I want some of that. I need some of that.
My first client, that's exactly how that happened. My first client said the concept was explained in 2 sentences, and she said, I want that. And what does that do for you, the guy with the idea, or the gal? Holy crap. Maybe maybe I'm not just whistling Dixie here, as they say.
I'm gonna go back real quick, because you two touched on this. You both started your businesses like just before the lockdown, and while my business had started back in 2008, it was always a part-time thing until October of 2019. That's when made the leap full-time into it, and just 6 months later the lockdown hits. So all three of us, huge turmoil as we're all getting into that full-time or new. That's crazy. We are gonna have a
thank you, pandemic.
Well, maybe a thank you, pandemic. Yeah, a thank you, pandemic, or a therapy session, a celebratory
a pandemic therapy. Because we all haven't probably had those over the last couple of years.
Right. Oh man, multiple times, a couple of near heart attacks for sure.
Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to our next episodes, and you're coming along with us for those. In fact, the next one will focus on how did we know to take the leap, and that's, I guess, twice for Dan. He started the business once and then had to take the leap to full time, which you just alluded to, and then the balance of us trying to figure out, should we jump off this very stable ship and try to swim on our own?
That's quite the question, because I think a lot of people get stuck in they give you just enough at that comfortable job to get you to stay.
Don't they?
Wow.
Don't they? Well, yeah. I think that's a pretty good point to end on, to be honest. I like that quite a bit. So yeah.
The podcast is called What the Biz. Check the show notes, click through to get more information, website, and more. And we'll be along before you know it with another episode. I'm Richard.
I'm Brigitte.
And I'm Dan.
Thanks for being with us.